Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Sockbot, and today is a sort of discussion type video, which is actually how I start a lot of my videos, so if you're into that, well, good news for you. But today I want to talk a lot about Luigi's Mansion 3. Now, I don't normally do reviews of games, and this is not a review of that game, so if you're looking for that, well, don't come here. But as a channel and person, I like to talk about different types of games in general and what makes them work well. And so for this is maybe the first one that I've actually done that is legitimately one game that does so many things well that I want to talk about it. And the reason that it is Luigi's Mansion 3 is because I have been playing it quite frequently over the last few nights since it was released on the 31st, and I have consistently been surprised. So if you like this sort of discussion type video, feel free to, if you already like it, leave a like down below, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more like this, but no pressure, as always. So let's get into Luigi's Mansion 3. So immediately when I booted up this game, one of the things that surprised me the most and impressed me the most wasn't how faithful it was to the original on the GameCube, and now mind I haven't played the second one on the 3DS, but more so that the environments presented themselves in a way that I knew this was going to be so much bigger and so much more involved than that first game. And it maintained that duality between it being a fantastic game on its own and being bigger and better, while still holding the spirit of the original game and that slightly quirky, kind of creepy, but also very silly type game. And I think this one actually goes a little bit sillier than the first game, but I'm not disappointed because it is very funny. But I'm not going to talk too much about the visuals and more particularly the script writing and the comedy of the game, because that's more of a review type thing. This is more focused on the game as a whole and what works well. So, what works well? Well, to begin with, the difficulty curve is rather perfect. I was shocked when about 20 to 30 minutes into the game, I was already given pretty much all of the major tools I was going to use throughout my entire playthrough. And I haven't finished the game yet, so there may still be a lot more left to go, but the tools that I was given immediately were the ones that I was using the most up through about halfway through the game. And they're incredibly fun, but more importantly, they don't hold your hand with them. And that's surprising because, like I mentioned, this is based on the GameCube game, or my impression of the GameCube game, which was very easy for the most part, but obviously even coming from a, how old was I, like 11-year-old's brain at the time, it was about what I wanted from a game's difficulty, and I think it would have worked for kids even younger than me, but I feel like adults may have been a little bit disappointed with that game. But this game, well, maybe errs more towards the adults that have a little bit of nostalgia for that, or of course, the teenagers who are Nintendo fans, and I mean, what teenager shouldn't be a Nintendo fan? Well, other than the ones that only play Call of Duty and think Nintendo games are for kids, which is obviously not true. But that all aside, I do want to say that the pacing of the difficulty spike is very, very impressive. More in the sense that it doesn't spike. It's just very quickly up, and then it launches you right into all the puzzles, and it gives you the tools and makes sure you know how to use them, but doesn't show you the specific ways in which they're used. For example, the Luigi, which can make its way through bars and gaps, I believe is mentioned right when he is given to you, although, actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure they actually mentioned that he could go through those types of gaps. I think they just hinted at it with one line of the voice, but immediately following that, you are reminded that there's a section not far off where you can use that to find a secret item, and that's where this game shines, is giving you these tools and making the general pacing quite easy to where you always know where you need to go next. And that's a big issue with a lot of different games, particularly the Zelda series. I think it's the only issue that the Zelda series continues to run into even now. Perhaps not with Breath of the Wild, because they did have map markers, but previous to that, but you always know where you need to go. There's always a new floor that's opened up, and you need to explore that floor and figure out what is in it, and it's just very much telling you where you need to go, which sounds like hand-holding, but like I said, it doesn't hold your hand. And so once you're there, you'll know what room to go to, but you don't know what to do next. And this kind of harkens on something that Mario games are very good at, where every level is very obvious. You reach the end, and that's how you complete the level, and it's a platforming game. But in a puzzler game, that's also sort of an exploratory, frankly, Resident Evil type game, where you're exploring for keys and other things to complete that section of the house, and occasionally backtracking even, it's much harder to forcibly tell people or just very obviously let them know where to go, because when you do that, you're ruining a part of the puzzle. But within Luigi's Mansion, these puzzles, once you get to that room that you were told essentially to go to, it's not straightforward at all. In that kind of up and down momentum where you know which room to go to, so you get to that room and you're on top and you're like, oh, I'm moving quickly, but then you're dropped to the bottom as you try to figure out the puzzle, but it never takes too long, so then you figure out the puzzle, move on to the next room that's very telegraphed, and then you're on the next puzzle, and, well, that's the kind of cycle you go through. And it's very, very satisfying, but what's more satisfying is the in-between there, where you just get to explore. And honestly, this is the more difficult part of the game, which I think is wonderful, because it's very highly encouraged from the beginning when you find a few obvious gems, which are the collectibles, on each floor, and you know exactly how many are there, and you're just set off to find them if you want to, but not forcibly told to find them. And when you do find the different areas, generally you'll find one that you can see the gem and you just have to figure out how to get it. And this is where another part of the game works super, super well. And this is something that pretty much everybody that wants to create any sort of game needs to know, is hinting at what to do in a puzzle based on the physical reality of the game. For example, there's this one gem that is completely not shown to you at all, but there is a section above the elevator on this floor where there's a walkable path, and it's sort of noticeable, and perhaps some people would notice and be like, oh, how do I get up there, or can I get up there? But I think more likely, for the actual story of the game, you're forced to explore the garden on the left side of the second floor of that next room, and the right side is less telegraphed and a bit harder to see. But if you are thinking through this, it's very, very fluid to think from that left side, oh, maybe I should check out the right side, and alas, that is how you reach the next section. So there's a few different points where it kind of hints, oh, hey, there's this thing here, or there might be this thing here, and every time I've thought that statement, and of course this is the next big thing about this game, every time I thought, oh, could I do this, or is there something there? Because it kind of looks like it's hinting at it. Every time that happened, there was always some money there, there was some sort of collectible gem, or, you know, often, as is the case, I stumbled upon the next point in the story and had to backtrack so I could collect more collectibles. But following that amazing pacing is the backtracking, and this is something that I've seen some people kind of talk negatively about. I think that I'm used to it from Resident Evil. I will say that I actually kind of like certain amounts of backtracking, and so far, I actually haven't struggled with it at all, to be honest, and it's not been telegraphed to me at all, which is kind of, you know, would be bad based on the story missions that require it to do it, but I'm thinking of this from the beginning, because from the beginning they kind of show you all of these places you can't get into. For example, a washing machine that has a gem inside that's running and you don't know how to get it until you learn to shoot it with a plunger and pull off the front of the washing machine. But there's the different sections in addition to that that have the gates, which then you can get into with Luigi, and later on there are just so many different sections that you'll see and pass, and they'll be very, very telegraphed to you that there is something here, or there's a door here, and you just kind of have to think, oh, I need to go back and explore that section. And lastly, I want to talk about the levels individually, and the levels, I literally mean the levels of the mansion, because they're all incredibly, incredibly unique, and I don't want to get into environmental design because that's subjective, although in this case it may not be because it's so wonderfully well done, but in this case I want to talk about how the sections are self-contained in the sense that they all have themes, and some kind of go back to the same sort of hotel themes, especially for the first few floors, but with these themes comes a short self-contained area that doesn't take that long to run through, and it doesn't take that long to explore. So if you do get a new ability and you just decide, oh, I'm going to go back through a couple floors and explore them, chances are you're going to, before long, stumble upon a place where you can use that ability to get another gem, and it's just so well laid out to the point where the mansion feels enormous, but it doesn't feel impossible to traverse. And it also doesn't feel too small in the sense that you can teleport between places because, well, that's not really an option. You still have to walk there, even though Luigi does actually run in this game if you're holding that direction, which, you know, well done. But the levels of the hotel are all so unique and also easy to get to, but so densely packed with collectibles and gameplay that it is just absolutely a masterpiece. And that's kind of what I wanted to go with this entire video, was talking about the individual aspects of this that make it so fantastic, rather than coming out and just talking about, oh, it's so great for all these reasons. These are all the individual things that it does really, really well that add up, amongst many other things I didn't talk about in this video, to it being a fantastic game. And to incorporate some of these into future games, whether you are a game designer or you're looking for these in the games that you want to play because you liked Luigi's Mansion 3, I think that the biggest things to look for are this initial startup of a game. Like I said, the difficulty curve is perfect, and I think that that is important within the game, but it's not super necessary, so maybe keep that on the back burner there. But with Luigi's Mansion, it's not a long game, and because it's not a long game, if you're going to start up a game you know from reviews or something that isn't quite long, one of the things to look for is how much content can you see from the beginning. One of my favorite recent games that I've played through was actually Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, but the remade version for the Nintendo Switch. That's the system I played it on anyways, and immediately you're just able to see so much content that you know you're going to get to, and that gets you so excited about the future of that game. And I think that that's something that you can incorporate even into a smaller level within Little Big Planet, for example, or a larger series of levels and scenes for a full game, such as in Dreams, or of course outside in generic creation tools. But giving the player a sense of what the scope of this game is something that gets players very invested. And it's not going to work in every single sort of game. I talk about horror games a lot on this channel, for example, and you don't want to throw everything out because you want to surprise the player, and I think that sense of surprise is important in most game genres, but give them a glimpse of it. I know that Until Dawn does this in the sense that you explore a certain area and you can see all these other paths that you can't access yet, but it's not frustrating because you're very much still moving forward in the game, but you know you're going to get there at some point, and I think that that is one of the biggest things that Luigi's Mansion does so well, and it delivers on all of those opportunities incredibly without spoiling all of the future floors that will still surprise you with their glory, I guess you could say. But anyways, I'm getting a little bit dramatic because I did very much enjoy this game, or still am enjoying this, as like I said, I haven't finished it, and that's why this isn't a full review. But I just wanted to discuss some of the things that I thought worked very well. So if you enjoyed this sort of video, again, feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and feel free to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, or on games and game creation in general. But otherwise, I hope you guys are all having a great day, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Goodbye. Was that weird? That may have been a little weird. Hopefully that didn't ruin your ears.